Ambassadors of Death originated after original script editor David Whittaker completed work on the Season 5 story The Enemy of the World in 1968. The current script editor, Derek Sherwin, approached Whittaker in 1968 to write a 6-part serial titled The Invaders from Mars, which detailed about humanity's present-day encounter with alien life forms. However, Terrence Stiggs became the prominent script editor the following year, and whilst Sherwin had been promoted to producer, and the storyline was extended to 7 episodes, and now retitled The Carriers of Death. Companions of the 60s, Jamie and Zoe, were replaced with Liz Shaw and Unit, and was intended to be the second story of Season 7. Problems sadly arose when Whittaker submitted the first 2 episodes, and Sherwin felt that it was not what he was looking for. Assistant script editor Trevor Ray was given the task of rewriting episode 1 and gave it back to Whittaker as an idea of what the production team wanted. However, the work was put on hold as Whittaker and the writing team were unable to move forward with the story suitably. In mid-November 1969, agreements were made to have Whittaker deliver nothing beyond episode 3. Malcolm Hulke, who had recently completed the Silurians, was commissioned on November 18th to revise the delivered parts 2 and 3 and write the final 4 episodes, making changes to Whittaker's storyline when necessary. Despite the massive alterations, Whittaker would maintain writing credits throughout the serial, and to allow more time for the rewrites, it was decided to bump the Silurians up second in transmission and production, and the Carriers of Death now transmitted to be third. Filming commenced on January 23rd, 1970. 2 Buckinghamshire locations were used. The Little Marlow Sewage Works was the isotope factory, while the gravel pit was Folly Gravel's pit at Spade Oak. The Suffolk Gasworks in Middlesex served as the exterior for the Space Centre headquarters and was filmed on January 26th and 27th. The warehouse fight was filmed on the following days at TCC Condensers in Ealing. The retrieval of Recovery 7 was enacted at Aldershot, Hampshire on January 30th and 31st. At the same time, the serial's title was now The Ambassadors of Death, and studio taping began on February 13th. In contrast to the Silurians, Ambassadors employed the traditional studio schedule of completing 1 episode every 7 days. For episode 5, the production team decided to replace the scripted Sergeant West with John Levine as Sergeant Benton. Benton had been introduced as a corporal in The Invasion from Season 6 and had already been invited back for this story and the next one, Inferno, giving John Levine more of an acting job. The Ambassadors of Death was David Whittaker's final Doctor Who story, as well as being his final work for the BBC. While he was approached to adapt this story for the Target novelisation, it was a project he would never complete, and he sadly passed away in February 1980. The story starts with the Doctor and Unit investigating the mystery surrounding Mars Probe 7, as Space Control have had no contact with the probe since it started back from Mars 7 months ago. Sending a recovery probe, it also falls into trouble and returns to Earth with the astronauts missing. It soon becomes clear that the alien ambassadors have swapped places with the human astronauts. The Doctor makes a solo flight to Recovery 7 and docks with Mars Probe 7, but is intercepted by a huge alien spaceship and taken aboard, where he finds the human astronauts completely unharmed. The alien captain threatens to destroy the Earth unless their ambassadors are returned to them. Returning to the Earth, the Doctor discovers that the kidnapping of the ambassadors is part of a scheme devised by General Carrington in order to start a war between humanity and the alien species. While the story is credited to David Whittaker, it's very clear that Malcolm Hulke's trademarks as a writer are all over the script. As like the previous story, The Silurians, the serial isn't as black and white as everything may seem. Furthermore, it's also reflective of the style and tonal changes that Doctor Who was undergoing at the time, mixing the eccentric scientist who battles monsters and more or less blending it with the tone of a James Bond film. One of the serious ones, that is. The Ambassadors of Death definitely showcases this mix of genres, as there's OTT gunfights, fistfights, car chases, alien conspiracies, etc. And while I do think this is the weakest story of Season 7, but that's not to say that this is a bad story. It's got a lot going on, but also not much going on. Jon Pertwee is still a marvel to watch as the Doctor, but I think in this story you can see the exile starting to take its toll on the good old Doctor. He's sarcastic and patronising to figures in authority like Sir James and General Carrington, but also gets to show his suaveness with the disappearing tape trick that only Pertwee, I feel, could pull off very well. It is funny, but it doesn't undermine our believability in the Doctor's character. A similar moment also comes when he pretends to be a crazy old fool who needs help with his car in order to reobtain the hijacked space capsule. Again, It's funny, but it's still cool for this Doctor's character and doesn't undermine him in any way. Now, rewatching the Third Doctor just throughout Season 7, I'm genuinely surprised that the new Doctor was written as a bit unlikable, but I also think that that is an advantage, as there aren't any unfavourable comparisons between him and the previous Doctor, Patrick Troughton, as Troughton felt like your mad cuddly uncle, whereas Pertwee feels like more of your crazy granddad who wants to feel young and wants all the latest gadgets and technology. For my Jon Pertwee moment of the week, I'm going with the cliffhanger to episode 2. Yep, it's the
right, cut it open.
The reason I'm choosing this as my favourite is because on paper it sounds like one of those cliffhangers that realise, 25 minutes are up, we need to end the episode now. But the random questions that the Doctor gives the recording of Van Leyden just builds up the tension until he utters, right, cut it open. There's so much conviction said in the delivery, and it just makes the mystery and build-up all the more brilliant. I think viewers may have been sat there wondering for a week what on earth could be inside the capsule, and for me it always gives me shivers and ranks as one of Doctor Who's best cliffhangers. Liz Shaw still proves to be a very competent companion. However, I feel the character does become a bit of a damsel in distress when she's kidnapped in episodes 3 and 4. But I don't feel this undermines her in any way, as she's not being used for leverage or a hostage situation. She is being used by the henchmen because of her intelligence, so I don't think it undermines her or devolves her character down. I did enjoy her scenes with Dr. Lennox, convincing him to go to UNIT with information regarding the aliens. While she is held hostage for the most part, she still remains a strong character in my opinion. And as for the Brigadier, he is an absolute badass in this story, proving to be such a great action star. His smoothest moment for me comes in the warehouse fight in episode 1, when he and the enemy sergeant corner each other. Neither can miss at that range, but the Brigadier is cool and collected and argues that if he is shot, his men will kill the sergeant in retaliation. The Brigadier could die at any moment there, but he shows his courage and bravery. You get that there's so much experience and action behind this man. I also like how his loyalty and friendship to the Doctor is tested, as the Doctor is going beyond authority, but the Brigadier will risk going outside protocol as he trusts the Doctor to do the right thing. And I like how their relationship develops over their first season together. In Spearhead from Space, the Brigadier is unsure whether to trust the Doctor, as he now has a completely different face, and in the Silurians they clash over what's best for the Earth, peace or war. But by this story, their friendship has mellowed out, and they have become more trusting of each other, I think. The villains this week are a pretty interesting one. From the title, you'd assume that the alien ambassadors are the villains, but you'd be wrong here, as the villain is none other than humanity. General Carrington I find to be a pretty interesting antagonist. He landed on Mars years ago with his fellow astronaut Jim Daniels, and they encountered the aliens. However, not realising that their touch was fatal to humans, they accidentally killed his friend Daniels. Carrington believes that the aliens were a threat to the Earth and wants to use them to start an interplanetary war. I like how his racism and prejudice is his motivation, as you do understand where he's coming from. And I like how he wants the world to be scared of the aliens to start a war. It's like he wants everyone to get on his side. Furthermore, while the episode never outright states it, you could make the argument that Carrington suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder. I like how he's not a completely black and white character, but similar to the aliens, he's also wearing a mask, as beneath the authority figure is a damaged character who believes it's his moral duty to fight the aliens. Though my main problem with Carrington does come with how he's used. In episode 1, it's pretty obvious he's the villain, yet the big reveal comes at the end of episode 6, even though we, the audience, already know this, despite the episode treating it as some massive twist that we didn't see coming. Yeah, you can't have it both ways, guys. Finally, his defeat is pretty underwhelming. They simply surround him and he goes down without a fight. In fact, it was going to be a darker ending for General Carrington. In the original script, he was going to be sent to an insane asylum, but they may have cut it because even then that might have been too far for a family show. His henchman Regan, played by William Dysart, is a pretty stereotypical sidekick, as he doesn't have much motivation on why he's helping Carrington, but the performance I think really brings it to life. His glee when he realises how indestructible the aliens are is great. You just love to hate him. There's not much to his character, but the performance is what really brings it to life. There's so much grittiness in his actions, such as disposing of the dead henchman in the gravel pit. While the scene may go on for a bit long, it shows how far he will go to cover his tracks. Plus I like his quip about using the aliens to rob Fort Knox. I wonder if that was a reference to Goldfinger. Interesting fact about Regan, he was originally going to be Irish but was dropped after the recent riots in Northern Ireland had occurred, and they didn't want to show the Irish wield a powerful new weapon in Aliens. Ouch. The supporting cast are also pretty good. I really like Ralph Cornish, played by Ronald Allen, as he not only cares for the operation of the Space Centre running smoothly as possible, but he is concerned for the safety of his staff and astronauts. We all need a boss like Cornish. While he initially finds the Doctor irritating, he comes to trust him over the course of the story, and he provides such a warmness to the massive and corporate-looking Space Control Centre. I do like the misguidedness of Sir James Quinlan. He wants to use the aliens for a political coup of making first contact and wanted fame and glory. He's not exactly a bad man, but he underestimated how dangerous both the aliens and Carrington are, and his ambition proved to be his downfall as he is killed by the aliens. Reporter John Wakefield, played by Michael Wisher, is also a very welcome addition. Whenever he's on screen, Wisher's eyes always seem to be looking at an off-screen auto-cue. However, that's intentional, and it keeps the space control disaster grounded in reality and the world being aware of these events. It was a pretty good touch, and I don't think they needed to add it, but it was really nice to have. The alien ambassadors are also an interesting concept. I like how they're a peaceful race who are willing to cooperate with humanity, but they are willing to fight if their ambassadors are not returned to them. The only problem is their touch is deadly to humans, and they may seem grotesque looking and mysterious, but they are a peace-loving race. Their voices by Peter Halliday are also really effective. While they do sound a bit too similar to the Silurians, they are distinctly alien enough. The imagery of the spacesuit is also really effective. I'm a firm believer in less is more, and the fact that we don't see much of them is what makes them so chilling in my opinion. Plus, when you think about it, it links to Carrington's plans: keep the raids public but have the perpetrators be mysterious in order to evoke panic and chaos in the unknown for the military and the public. I love how there's shades of grey to the characters and the aliens. You think you can trust or mistrust them to start with, but as the story goes on, the characters behind the masks is revealed. It's indicative of how this new era is tackling themes of racism, prejudice, and how nothing is black and white as it seems anymore. A step in the right direction in my opinion. Production-wise, the budget is very much on screen. The action scenes are superb, almost 50 years later. This was their first use of Havoc, a stunt agency, and I'm glad they used them here. There are plenty of fistfights, gunfights, motorbike chases, car chases, and even a fight on a helicopter. It's all really effective and just adds to the scale of this new action-adventure era. Michael Ferguson is a brilliant director as he creates some gorgeous shots, such as the alien silhouetted against the sunset and slowly walking to the guard who's shooting and firing at it, but it's completely ineffective, unstoppable. It's genuinely chilling to watch. The model work is also top-notch with the space probes and the alien spacecraft, and the music by Dudley Simpson is also pretty sublime. The theme used for the aliens is great. It sounds so powerful, mysterious, and unknown, which is what the alien characters are, as we don't know their true intentions until later in the story. The theme for UNIT is also great, very militaristic and British, and if UNIT ever had a spin-off series on TV, they should have used that music. Now, speaking of music, this is the first story to use the iconic sting for each episode ending, a trait that sticks around even today. Plus, I don't know whose idea it was, but the opening titles are split with an episode reprise, and then the title comes in with a twang used for of death. It's a shame this was only used once, and I think it's a really effective and flashy way to introduce the story and gets me excited whenever I start watching the Ambassadors of Death. And who knows, maybe they'll bring it back for Series 12. If I do have problems with the Ambassadors of Death, it would be its length. For 7 episodes, I think it's quite padded, especially in episode 4, as there's not really enough plot to fill an egg cup in my opinion. Liz is captured, then she escapes, then she's recaptured again, and not much has been done to advance the plot. By the end of the episode, the Doctor comes to the conclusion that the astronauts are alien replacements, but it's painfully obvious that they're not human. In my opinion, this would have worked better as a 6-parter, as I feel it's just too long for 7. As mentioned before, I do find the ending a bit too flat and ineffective, and it kind of gives off the impression that the budget had run out for an explosive climax. So, in conclusion, The Ambassadors of Death is an action-packed, gritty story that's superbly directed with great performances, themes, and an interesting use of human villains as opposed to the aliens being the antagonists. While it is too long and probably has too much going on, or not much going on in terms of story, it's still an entertaining watch and an underrated gem from the Third Doctor's era. Well everyone, that is all from me. Be sure to like, share and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the Ambassadors of Death. Is it your favourite from Season 7, or is it your least favourite but you still have a soft spot for it? Let me know and I'll take a look, and I shall see you all next time. Goodbye.